I think Wendy's working on it.
Because they did dial in and said that we were the first one in the conference call. Please stay on the line. Gotcha.
You can hear us.
You can hear you.
Who? Someone last meeting.
Let's get 15-year-old in here.
He can hear us, we can't hear him.
Oh wait, no, maybe it was when I came in to meet with them. I saw him.
For a superintendent, that's the perfect way to run a board meeting.
That is. He can hear us, but we can't hear him.
Just kidding.
Look at
Go
I
ahead.
I don't take hints.
Makes the meetings go fast.
We just did this earlier today and it was working fine.
He's calling to the conference call.
The number you
He's calling to the number that
you gave,
Andrew
right?
gave me this morning.
He can hear us, so
He can hear us.
we got one-way audio.
He can hear him right now.
Can you ask him to drop the call and call him again?
You want him to call back?
Just enter the conference call again.
We are down.
Oh, there's your check.
He's calling me.
Totally, that would be hilarious.
Everybody goes out for drinks tonight.
What? Or
Bless
drink.
Because it would announce.
It did earlier.
Announce that we called in. Do we both have to call in? So we heard
We're
one
already
announcement.
connected.
Yeah.
Yeah, we already called in.
So we can go to this, right? We can go to this.
Call from there.
But I thought y'all had big problems on this one before.
We've got big problems with this one right now. Let's try this one. We don't have
Do you want his phone number and call him?
That's good.
We heard about this. We'll get there.
I can always just call into speakerphone too, it'll be okay.
I think it was more that Jeff had a hard time hearing if this wasn't placed in a certain spot and somebody was speaking fast.
He's only been gone for like 15 minutes.
I don't know, but right now I just need him on the phone.
Do you want to call into the conference? Shall we try it?
Call him
Yeah.
right now too.
Is that a busy signal?
No, that's always what it does,
Oh.
I think.
Call the 847.
703.
Alright, I'm not sure.
Welcome to the conference. I might.
We heard that.
I heard it the first time I called. I heard that call.
At the tone, say your name and then press pound.
Hey.
One moment while your call is connected. Now joining.
So you didn't hear me up here. So yeah, he did it right. But it's not going
Oh, no, you don't. You're dangerous. I always wish I had that when I drove, like out the back windshield.
Stay back.
Oh, okay. The closer you get, the slower I go.
So my iPad is plugged in, but it's using more battery than it's getting to go through this.
Did you put all your apps?
These guys here. Keeps it defaulting like Bluetooth or something.
There's probably an app that's training.
I'm gonna try it. I don't have any apps. Really. It's on the Bluetooth. Hopefully that'll help. Secrets.
Also try it. We turn it off and push back on.
I just restart both sides.
That sounds like
It
a
says
good
home
idea.
Bluetooth, which I don't know why it's connected anyway. I'll use it.
It was tested this afternoon, though. I don't know what happened,
There it was in here.
right?
I can use the speaker on my cell phone.
I was gonna say, you wanna just
Yeah.
put him on a cell phone until we,
Can you give me a cell phone number? But we won't say it out loud. Is it the first one?
Yes. It's this one right here.
The second one?
Yeah, because the top one, the 3.
Oh, the three. Okay. It's pretty loud.
Hey,
Hello. Hello, Jeff. Welcome to the board meeting. We'll pass you around as needed.
You're on speakerphone, so that's how we're gonna do it right now. Okay. All right. I can use the gavel for the.
Go ahead.
Go for it.
Let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Can I get a roll call, please?
Julie Simpson. Here. Robin Cleek. Here. Wes Pullen. Here. Matt Jacobs.
Here.
Jason Tron.
Here.
Jeff Bard.
You have to call Sonali's name.
All
Sonali
right.
Patel.
We have 7 present. Jeff is on speakerphone.
Six
Sonali's
present.
or 6 present. I'm sorry. I'm new at this. 6 present.
Doing well.
Jeff's on speakerphone with us remotely. All right. First item on the agenda is a public hearing for the concerning the intent of the Board of Education to sell 1.5 million working cash fund bonds. Abe, he's got a presentation to summarize what we've got for this public hearing.
Thank you very much. So to frame and to begin this public hearing, I would like to review the proposed financing schedule of our $1.5 million in working cash DSEP bonds. Having arrived to July 23rd, this is the public hearing. Let me pull up my pointer here. This is part of the presentation, and tonight is the board meeting. Welcome, everyone. July 23rd, for the issuance of the bonds. I don't know why the music's playing.
Oh, I thought
It's
you-
not part of the presentation.
I thought you were serious. What the heck?
You believe me.
This is.
But August 13th at the next regular meeting, we will
Hold
then,
on. We can't proceed with this.
oh, it's Jeff. No,
Jeff.
Coming out of the conference call.
We can close the conference call because we have one.
Right.
Don't need that.
Okay.
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 So we're going to proceed.
All right, go ahead. Abe.
Sorry, Abe.
Go on.
Carry on.
So at the next, at the August 13th meeting, that's when we'll approve the bonds. At that point, the point of this meeting tonight is to have a public hearing where members of the public can voice questions as it relates to this. And in summary, this is the format of the $1.5 million DSEB model. The taxes would remain under the current DSEB capacity, so there's no net increase to that. And it puts us out through 2028. The full cost for the entirety is $1.8 million. The refunding of the 2009B bonds will net savings of $213,000 as well, and also creating $1.5 million of proceeds that we may use towards our working capital plan, which was presented February 6th, 2018. We identified $5.4 million and identified needs within that plan. It included such items as paving repairs, roofing repairs, HVAC repairs as well. So with that, I would like to pass it back to you, Jason.
All right, thank you, Abe. So bottom line is we're saving money by doing the refinancing. We're also we're also receiving $1.5 million in cash, and we're not impacting the homeowners with any increase in taxes.
That's
Sounds
correct.
like a win to me. So this is part of the public hearing, so we welcome any public comments as it applies to the 1.5 million working cash bond refunding. Anyone from the public wish to comment? Nope. All right. I guess we can close this public hearing then. Thank you, Abe. The other thing on the agenda for public comment is general public comment. Anybody from the public want to comment on anything? Nope. All right. Thank you. We'll keep moving. First thing we've got staff recognition. We have nothing scheduled there. Presentation. Although it says nothing scheduled, we do have a number of new hires here that Lynn is going to present to us. Lynn.
I have no music.
Darn it.
There's probably nobody is happy to be here tonight to introduce our 3 new administrators than I am. I'm very excited tonight to introduce some quality candidates. They've all gone through rigorous interview processes over the past weeks with many members of our staff, our new interim superintendents, and our central administration and administrative team. So first I'd like to introduce Alma Tamayo. She may be familiar to us. Alma is what we would like to call homegrown. We're very excited. In 2013, I introduced her as a first-year teacher right out of college. Since then, she's received her master's degree. Currently, she's working on getting her Director of Special Education endorsement, and she recently graduated in May with her master's degree. She's been at the School of Dual Language and Elementary South and been on numerous district committees and committees in her building, as well as community outreach and several other things that she does outside of the school district. So Alma's going to be a tremendous asset to our bilingual population that she's done a lot of work with, as well as many of our special education parents and students at our district. So Alma, we welcome you. We'll have you shake hands at the end after I introduce everybody. Next, I have Dr. Jennifer Hawk, who is getting used to her new name, who has just graduated with her doctorate degree. And she comes to us from Fremont. There's still feedback. That's okay. I'm going to keep going. Thank you, Mark. She comes to us from Fremont, where she's been associate principal. Prior to that, she was assistant principal. And she did her teaching in Woodland School District, and she was a 4th grade teacher for about 10 years over there. So I think she and Vicki have kind of switched. She, outside of her principal duties and responsibilities, she's done a tremendous amount of work with her own district at Fremont with, as you read in her resume, a lot of work in district and building committees. Jennifer is also outside of the school district is a board member at Woodland School District number 50. She's waiting for music for her next meeting. And the third that we would like to introduce is our new Director of Teaching and Learning. This is Allison Stein. She comes to us from, and she doesn't have to change much because she comes to us from Skokie District, 73 and a half. So getting used to that number.
This isn't a demotion because you're going from half to 73.
Allison has, in addition to being a principal for a number of years, she's done many committees. Rigorous curriculum throughout all of her resume. As you read, you saw that she's performed a lot of responsibilities in curriculum and leadership in her role as a principal in that district, as well as para-joint committee, and she's also worked as an educational consultant. So we know that Allison is going to bring to us a wealth of experience in many of the initiatives that we have at Hawthorne 73, and we're very excited to have her start. Jennifer is starting on Wednesday. Alma is starting half days because she's still teaching summer school for us as a teacher.
Oh, wow.
So we don't want to waste any time. We're going to have her on the other half of the day on that. And Allison will be starting on the 6th of August. So we would like to thank BWP for helping us along with the search. It was great for us to be able to move forward to get such excellent candidates. And we look forward to having them join our administrative team. And we would like to introduce them to you now.
Like a wedding reception.
Congratulations again. Welcome.
You brought Monica to that?
Welcome.
This is great. Great.
So happy you're here.
Thank you.
So happy you're with us.
Oh.
Now it'll
Yeah, the
probably
copper.
work.
Oh.
Congratulations.
Thanks for choosing Hall.
Hi, welcome.
Welcome. Thanks for choosing Hall.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Could I just?
Thank you, Lynn.
I just wanted to add one thing. I wanted to thank Lynn. While BWP spearheaded 2 of those searches and did a great job finding really highly qualified candidates, Lynn organized all of the internal committees and groups and brought everybody together, was absolutely invaluable. So thank you too, Lynn.
Thank you, Lynn. All right, moving along. Discussion items. We're going to start with number 2 first and then move to 1. So we're going to start with the EFMP and the plan refinement and the building referendum. Abe has a couple of slides that summarizes what we're talking about. Then we can have a discussion on it.
So as a summary from the last meeting, I believe this is where we've arrived, which is not necessarily option 3B, but it's a 2018 EFMP now as a result of those discussions. Jason recommended this chart which really helps to delineate by school each of these components. And we've then updated the plan as well. And as it relates to the funding options for this, again, we would be refunding some of the existing bonds and looking at a model which extends out the additional bond money to basically even that expense out over time, resulting in savings from 2018 through 2023. Another way to look at that, it's the blue, which is the existing current debt service if we do nothing, and then the orange. Thank you again, Jason. This was very helpful in that overlapping the two, you can see clearly the difference in savings from 2018 through 2023. With that, are there any questions?
So I think to summarize, the plan that we're showing up here that we're going to take action on later this evening is right now we're calling it the 2018 EFMP. In summary, we're adding 36 new classrooms, 6 art rooms, 5 music and band rooms, 6 PE and cafeteria spaces, 7 student support additions, and 2 STEM facilities at the middle school, for a total of almost 110,000 or almost 110,000 square feet. So the plan that we had come up with, that's the summary of what we're getting in addition. The other part of the plan to summarize is the kindergarten will be part of the plan connected to the Sullivan Center. Early childhood and pre-K will stay at Lincoln, so we're not bringing those students back. There's going to be no library modernization, but there will be a number of renovation as well as health, life, safety issues that we'll be correcting. So that kind of summarizes up what we're getting with this plan that we're going to approve later. Any questions or discussions on this plan? The other thing I want the public to know is we came up with this plan through half dozen public meetings, town halls, a number of sessions where we received community feedback in multiple ways, either immediately in the meetings themselves, some feedback after the fact, some surveys. We had a number of different options that we looked at based on the community feedback. We refined them. We did value engineering. We got them down to 3, and then we continue to take a look at what the best option is. So in doing this, it was very open. We spent a lot of time on it, so it was not rushed. We did take a lot of community input into this final decision. So this end plan here is a result of a lot of work on the board's part, the community's part, the administration part, DLR, and everybody involved. Comments, questions?
I just need you to repeat something because I was taking notes on something else while you were mentioning it. The ECC pre-K, since I can't see that far, the plan is to keep it at Lincoln.
Correct.
So the 4 additions onto Elementary North are not ECC pre-K classrooms. Correct?
Correct. They were something.
It's just additional.
There were just 4 classrooms from what I see here.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? So we'll take an action item later tonight about approving this EFMP. The next item was the bond referendum. Will be another action item that we'll take later on tonight to approve the language on the referendum. The next item is the limit rate increase. So Abe also has some summary on that. Abe?
Great. To summarize again, we've identified a need to offset the operational costs associated with this building bond, $1.3 million in annual operational costs associated with these additions and construction, which would result in a 10-cent tax rate increase. And the chart identifies that for a $350,000 home, close to the median, that would result in $111 per year additional costs. As it relates to the limiting rate increase, the way it is stated, it is a 1-year increase to that limiting rate, but it is an increase that would hold and remain for subsequent years. We don't want to increase the limiting rate for multiple years, just 1 year to capture the $1.3 million, which would be sustained for subsequent years. And now you can see the current outstanding debt in the chart above. The chart beneath that captures the net refunding of the existing bonds in dark blue. In green, you can see the proposed referendum bonds, and then the limiting rate increase in blue right above that, and the overall impact over time.
Any questions that we will also take action on this later on tonight. Questions, comments, concerns?
No, sir.
All right, Jeff, anything?
No.
All right. Okay, moving on. Consent agenda. For our consent agenda tonight, we have board meeting minutes from 7/9/18.
Okay.
What else can go wrong?
That's homemade technology.
Yeah, got disconnected.
All right, consent agenda, board meeting minutes from 7/9/2018, expenditure report, Amex report from June, kindergarten project cost log, personnel report, which includes 8 new hires. You all got a list of the additions from today. Resignation 7 with the additions that we had given to us today. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move that the Board of Education approve the consent agenda as presented.
Do I have a second?
Hold on, it sounds like Wes has a.
I'll ask after.
I'll second it.
All right, motion by Julie, second by Matt. Wes, did you have a question?
I had just about are we not going to touch on the number 4 and 5 discussion items?
Oh,
So we're going to come back to the.
We can come
back. Are we gonna go back?
We're
I
going
just
to come
told you.
back to the
those
vote
or
for
not?
the consent.
All right, so I'm sorry. My apologies.
That's okay.
Three
Okay,
through.
I did miss
We still
two-
have
two
to do
items.
3 through 5.
Okay.
Thank you.
I
am new at this. I wanted to get this over.
We're with you.
thank you, Jason, and I'd love to too, but I was like,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that.
I'm like, all right.
There's a few things more that we had to discuss.
All right.
So let's
Second by Matt.
we can circle back to those discussion items later.
okay.
Right after this.
Yes.
Again, we've got a motion by Julie, second by Matt. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Julie Simpson. Aye. Robin Cleek.
Aye.
Wes Pullen, aye. Matt Jacobs.
Aye.
Jason Tron.
Aye.
Jeff Bard.
Aye.
Motion passes, 6 ayes, 0 nays. All right. Now back to our
Circle back.
discussion item.
Jason,
Okay.
we need to close the public hearing. We need a roll call to close the public hearing.
We need a roll call for that?
Yes.
All right. So we're going to circle way back to the public hearing. I thought I'd closed the public hearing, but we need, from what Abe's saying, we need a roll call to close the public hearing. Can I get a roll call to close the public hearing, please?
Julie Simpson. Aye. Robin Cleek.
Aye.
Wes Pullen, aye. Matt Jacobs.
Aye.
Jason Tron.
Aye.
Jeff Bard.
Aye.
Public hearing is closed, 6 ayes, 0 nays. Thank you, Abe. All right, back to the discussion item number 3. So we're going to talk about the how we do our press revision. Joe has some ideas of how we can be faster and more efficient.
Well,
Take it away, Joe.
Mark and I had a conversation. Last meeting was my first meeting, and I saw poor Sonali trying to go through all of these things, and you as a board trying to talk about these kinds of revisions as a group of 7 people. So I checked with Mark to see how he did it in his former district, and turns out he did it the exact same way that I did it in my former district. And so we thought we'd run it by you and see if you're okay with it. And most districts do it this way. It's obviously, if you know those press, they come and keep on coming. So you probably shouldn't try to attack them every time one new one comes in, because sometimes it's a minor change, sometimes it's major. So the first thing we'd suggest is maybe once every 3 months you do you see how many press revisions came in, unless there's one that's immediate. You know, you don't have to do them immediately. You can let them go for a couple of months. Then, if the board would like to take turns, or if somebody's really into policy and wants to take this on, you could meet then with Mark and I, and at least one board member, and we'd go through all of the things and talk about it, and we'd give you the school district's perspective and so on, and then make a simple recommendation for the whole board to consider when it comes up. Now, there are a couple of policies every once
Sort of
in a
like a
while.
consent agenda type thing
Yeah.
based on the policy.
Yeah, and there's a couple of policies that always come up that do need a little richer, deeper discussion. An example would be sometimes the press group recommends changes in discipline and things along those lines. So what we would do if one of those came up, we would just pull that one and have a deeper discussion at the board level. But for the routine, a footnote changed here and there, a new precedent is listed, a new court case, those can be done pretty efficiently with a board member and the superintendent, and then, as Mark said, presented to you as a consent agenda. And if any of the recommendations bothered anyone, just like a consent agenda, you could pull it out. But I just saw you guys, I have to joke, as soon as Sonali uttered the word press, there was a collective 6. And Jeff, I even heard you over the phone do it. So I was hoping you'd be receptive to that new idea, and we can give it a try. But if you have concerns,
Unless individually you have issues with trying to keep up with the press documents, that also can be an assigned board member responsibility, one person, and do that very same thing one person recommends to the rest of the board members. But the collective experience that both Joe and I have works really well. And it's about not trying to group editorialize or group edit a document
It's just too hard.
in public. It's really tough. And so we're giving you relief here.
Thank you.
Yeah, sounds good.
So,
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Jason.
say one process question would be, would we still get the press as they come today in the same frequency? So you wouldn't hold them all. We would still see them. Is that correct?
We could set it up any way you'd
Whatever
like.
you want, yeah.
So even though we get it, we don't have to discuss it. We still
Correct.
let you guys do it.
That might be a good way to
And then-
ease into it
And then
from
let the
what you're
board
used to.
say, okay, now it's on the board to take a look at it on our own time, and if there's anything specific that we want to bring back, we'll let you know. Everything else, you're free to make the recommendations you
That
want.
sort of fits the mold,
Okay.
except we've got it queued up where we know every 3 months we're going to do a board report reflective of that, or your new superintendent's going to get into that model too. And there's no saying what your new leader is going to have in his or her experience in dealing with press. But what you're doing in the way it was described to me is probably very time-consuming and unnecessary.
Especially for Sonali.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm fine with taking that suggestion, especially because it seems like there's a lot of policy that comes our way that we have no choice in the matter of
Right.
anyway.
Yes.
So to sit there and
Right.
try
That's
to
different.
digest it is
Yeah.
probably not worth
Very
our
different.
time.
Julie, you
Yeah.
okay with that?
Whatever.
That's a double
Down
thumbs
with
up.
it.
Yeah, I mean, and what I started doing, just because it was so much reading,
Right.
the IASB does, I don't think it's monthly, but they, whenever a press packet comes out, they do a webinar.
Mhm.
And so I go back and I listen to that because it's less than an hour and I can just listen to it and they give me all the information I need.
Cool. I didn't know that.
Most of the time, you don't need
Yeah.
to make any adjustment to your policy. It's just
Right.
information.
Right.
Well, and that's what's nice about the webinar. They talk about, because there's, I think, the 3 attorneys from the IASB on there and just saying where, this is not necessarily a change. It's just, a little edit here
Right.
or there.
Right.
So I think
Okay.
we're all.
Let's give this a shot. We're trying to
Yeah.
streamline some
We're
things.
we're
Yeah.
looking for ways to help
Aye.
your time be as efficiently used as
I don't
possible.
see,
Again,
I don't see
thank you.
Sonali
You're
objecting to
No.
less
All
work
right,
for her.
so and I liked
You-
your suggestion,
speak for her.
Jason.
Right
Well,
now.
you can then continue to get the information the way you always have,
Sure.
but we'll wait the 3 months. We'll ask for a volunteer to sit with us, and
Okay.
then we'll do the consent recommendation.
Sounds good.
Excellent.
Beautiful.
Thank you
Thanks.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Good.
All right, next discussion item is, at the last meeting, it was brought up, a question for us to discuss is how should the board handle public comment during our future meetings based on, we're gonna have a lot of referendum type, probable comments and, the EFMP, stuff like that. Do we want to maintain our, practice of public comment where we listen to public comment, we don't engage, or do we want to go to the town hall style where we have some back and forth feedback and dialogue? Personally, I'm going to speak first. I think that this is more of a working meeting. I would prefer to keep it the practice that we have now. I think we'll have plenty of other outside town hall and public meetings where we can have that dialogue. But for board meetings, I really want to keep it streamlined. It's a working meeting for us and not to get into a back and forth with the public here at this meeting. Any other comments, observations?
I was going to ask if we open up, so we usually have 2 meetings a month. Some months we don't. If we open up 1 meeting a month to say a town hall format, does that mean we have to open up all meetings?
Don't know.
You may have a policy on that. I'm not sure either.
Yeah.
The definition of your board meeting is to conduct the business of the Board of Education. That's why most boards conduct it the way you do, where if somebody wants to address the board, they can. There's a provision and a time set for that, but the board does refrain from engaging in conversations. I've seen those go downhill very quickly when that happens sometimes. Here, you're going to be all on the same wavelength, hopefully, but there will be some people who will object to the referendum. You're going to have multiple vehicles for those objectors to make their statements and to come to meetings and voice their opinions. And you're not trying to shut anything down. I think what you're trying to do is continue to run the day-to-day business of the school district, regardless of what other things are going on.
So I was the one who made the suggestion, or who added it to the agenda. And I really didn't have an exact answer in mind when I suggested it. I think my concern is to continue to remain open to communication and feedback and have that be a two-way street, and to continue sort of making ourselves as transparent and approachable as possible, even after the referendum. Pass or fail, I have sort of liked the idea that we've been able to get some constructive feedback throughout the process. And if we don't open it up in this type of board meeting setting, I would at least like to throw out the idea of maybe like 3 times a year doing a town hall style where we go to one of the gymnasiums or cafeterias and take that opportunity without having any specific referendum or agenda in mind. If people are open to considering that. I know it's been thrown out here and there over the years, bagels at the board, whatever. It's just never come to fruition. But, I'm absolutely fine with leaving the board meeting the way it is, even though sometimes it's actually hard not to respond. But I just would like to kind of keep it open, because I find we've gotten good stuff at the town halls for the most part. So I find people don't want to seem to approach us here because they know they won't get an answer, at least not right then and there.
Robin, you're going to have an opportunity to see a town hall style meeting when the board sponsors an open meeting for the community to take input on their new leader.
Yeah.
People will get a chance to come and give you opinions about what they're like to see in a new leader. And that should give you a sense of what kind of maybe demand there is to have the opportunity to address the board in a non-formal board meeting setting. So that may be a good chance to do that, probably in September.
I mean, we've done some of our community engagement meetings that we've done so far. We've left open to town hall style, and I think it's gone pretty well. You get a little bit of repetition here and there, but for the most part, I think people make good points. I found them to be fairly respectful. I found that we're able to kind of wrap it up and bring it full circle before it drags on too long. So we've gotten a little hint of it here and there, but yes, I mean, when it comes to other topics, that's a good point, that for the superintendent search, that'll be important. But I'm fine with leaving the board meetings the way they are right now if we want to.
Anyone else?
And just informational, there is a policy 2:230 on public comment. Just FYI.
Thank you, Abe.
Quick on the draw.
All right, so I think the consensus to leave the board meetings, public comment as they are. We'll take advantage of other town halls or public meetings when we talk about the referendum or superintendent search, and use those avenues to get more interactive if need be.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Sounds good.
All right, last discussion item is some cost-cutting measures, some operating savings that Abe and his staff have been able to identify, and just give us a summary of what they've got.
Those pictures are great.
Thank you very much.
It's like a zip line.
Yeah, I feel like I'm
zip
at
line.
Disney World where they
GoPro.
zoom you in,
Mr. Christensen, can you approach as well and help present?
Approach the bench.
So formal.
Okay, thank you very much. This is an update on operational savings. It's a continuous initiative that we have, and we continue to find opportunities for savings at this point without compromising the quality of service as it relates to our operations. And I stress that at this point, that's where we're at. We've identified opportunities within the labor costs. That includes our internal staff. It includes the maintenance contracts, so existing contract services with electrical contractors, plumbing, HVAC, so on and so forth. And finally, the third leg of savings, it's the operational supplies, things that we use every day.
So in addition to what Abe said, we're also looking at exploring new things that we haven't done in the district as opportunities for the future. And one thing that's becoming very popular in school districts is a move to solar power. So So we've done some real preliminary work around the advantages of solar for our district. And if we can go to the next slide, Abe. We've had some front-end conversations with one of the companies that does this type of program. And this projected savings is based off solar power going on to Elementary North. So after the initial investment of this, which is about a 5-year payback, once that's paid off, and the life cycle of the solar panels that they're using now is about 30 years, you're looking at a return of about $1.1 million. So
Just on the one building?
just on one building. So these are not small numbers, and many school districts are going to this type of a platform because it's a clean power. There's a lot of incentives out there right now for solar power, and it's a real good tool for our kids too. It's a learning opportunity. It's good for the public, and this really, it decreases your carbon footprint. There's many advantages to going with solar. So this is one of the areas that we're exploring for the future.
There are multiple financing options as well. There are lease programs that exist out there that results in no upfront investment either. And the net savings pays for those lease payments early on. And there's a 10-year model as well as a 20-year lease model that basically extends varying cost savings.
Correct. So some of the things that we're immediately doing, you probably remember back to our capital discussion about what we were going to perform this year. And I really like this picture on the right. I've told Abe this about 5 times now. I love this picture. So the picture on the right-hand side of the screen, if you look at the light on the right-hand side of that picture, that was one of the existing parking lot lights with 4 400-watt metal halide fixtures on it. The light fixture on the left that's throwing more light, that has 2 LED fixtures on it. So you can visually see the lighting improvement, but the power consumption is huge. The difference in the two is huge. So by the time we're all completed with all the parking lot lights, we'll use about 13.7% of the power that we used prior to the LED installation and have a much better visual outcome for folks that are coming and going in our buildings after daylight hours.
So it's 102 outdoor fixtures, light pole fixtures that are being replaced. The North Campus is complete when you walk out tonight. If it is dark, then you'll notice the great difference. We've also included photo eyes on top of these fixtures as well. In the past, we've had issues with the times and the daylight savings and the timing of dusk and dawn when the lights come on. Now they independently come on at dusk, and so that's going to help from a safety perspective. And it's also important to note the picture on the left. This was done with internal staff. Our summer help folks were instrumental in getting all of this installed without using outside electrical contractors. Okay, and how about the energy itself, the gas and electricity that we pay? Our fixed rate costs with inflation increased by 19%. It caused us to look deeper into why this went up so much for 17-18 versus 16-17. We're part of a cooperative which is managed through a specific broker, and we're going to explore whether or not that's the most value-added decision for this district. In a former district, I was involved with a cooperative, and sometimes you're better off going independently and seeking your own bids as it relates to hedging gas and electricity. Just this is as of today. In comparing to the market, we could potentially save almost $10,000 in gas and about $42,000 a year in electricity, being able to competitively bid this out. So we're in the process of researching our contractual constraints, looking at this cooperative that are not easy to get out of because you're hedging multiple years in advance. But we want to put in our letter now, so when that time comes, we'll have the opportunity to seek the savings that are deserved for this district.
In addition to that, cooperative is only for the gas component right now, not the electric.
That is correct. Now, with that increase, what we saw for 17-18 was only a 1% increase in overall expenses. So the rate went up 19%. Our overall bill went up by 1%. Consumption is way down. So the set points are, have been modified all summer long. These buildings are unoccupied mode, and so they're warm, as they should because they're empty, and that's resulted in savings throughout. Just being smarter with our building automations and making sure that they're in unoccupied mode on holidays and days where buildings are not occupied, being conscious of that. And it's an important quadrant because we expend about $800,000 in gas and electricity. So we're keen on minimizing these costs.
So in addition to those types of costs, our summer helpers in the past, we've typically had over 20 summer helpers. And in many cases, those folks did a lot of the custodial duties that we paid a contract for them to do. So we've kind of revamped all that. We only got 4 summer helpers this year, and we had a very defined project list for those folks when they started. So they're assisting with our LED light installations, as Abe mentioned. They're also doing painting on the exterior, painting inside, and we're holding our outside contractor accountable to do the job that we're paying them to do as it relates to the cleaning and prepping of our buildings for school to begin. So overall, we've saved about $48,000 just for this change.
Correct. I think what's important to note is that we've identified within the GCA contract it was their job to clean over the summer, and we put them back at that task, which has resulted in savings of not having to hire additional folks for that. Also, just touching on the summer projects, last year we were under DLR to manage our summer work projects. We're not doing that this year. We're managing it internally. We've got the subject matter expertise in-house, and that's resulted in tens of thousands of dollars in savings and not having an architect oversee that. Notwithstanding, we had also a general contractor overseeing the subcontractors. So there were multiple layers of administrative costs that were there, which don't exist this summer.
And then probably our biggest dive this year is we really started to dissect our contracts and why are they used? What are we using them for? How are we leveraging those folks? And why are we doing it? And just in our contracts, we spend about $900,000 a year just in maintenance contracts. So as we took a look at those, we looked at, is the need really there? Maybe a partial need is there. Is it something that we can internalize? Can we bring that into our house and self-perform that work? So in doing that, we've found opportunities to save about $139,000 as it relates to that $900,000 bite of the contract. Many of these, if not all of them, are not completely eliminated. They're only reduced in scope. So we're still maintaining a service level with that particular contractor. It might be a different contractor. Some of these contracts we're competitively bidding, we're getting better pricing. But we're still holding the financial placeholder because the need is there. So GCA, out of all of our contracts, GCA is the most substantial contract, our cleaning company. One area of opportunity that we saw for really kind of some low-hanging fruit savings, any minor holiday that we have at the school district, obviously we're not here for school. The buildings aren't occupied. We do not do any type of building scheduling at night. So if you're if you're the park district or scouts or anything like that, we don't book our buildings with those folks. So that building has sat empty since the cleaning crew left the night before. There's no reason to clean it the next day. It's like going in Saturday to clean after Friday night. Nobody's been in the building all day. Just by doing that one piece for 9 minor holidays, we save about $13,000. So that's a pretty low-hanging fruit item that makes some sense to do. And then we've also looked at our supplies and how we order them, where we order them. So we used to order supplies pretty much all over the map. And we've done some consolidation of supplies. We've taken 18 supplies that used to go to about 7 or 8 different vendors, where we would have lead times that in many cases would exceed 2 weeks to get our supplies in. And it's very, very tough to manage your inventory with that. So we've looked at those, and we went through a procurement company, and we've actually reduced our cost by about $4,000. But more importantly, we get our supplies in the next day. We order from one company, they come in the next day by noon, and they haven't missed. So this has been hugely beneficial for us. And we found some other savings and consolidation of supply types in doing this. So prior to doing this exercise, we had 3 different hand soaps we used across the district. Depending on what building you were in, you might have all 3 types. So that custodian would be going around filling different soap containers from all these different supplies. So we have consolidated to 1 soap type, and we bought bulk dispensers to put in each building so they can bulk fill their own soap dispensers in the building, and all we do is keep the bulk supply in the warehouse. So it's a huge time saver for our folks as well.
Okay.
Better logistics, less inventory on site, less space, and we have space needs. So thank you for that.
Is there a reason they had 3 different types of soap, or that was just?
I can't really answer that one. I'm not really sure why
Probably
we had
before your
this many
time.
going. I think some of it was probably we had it. There was some personal preference with some folks. I like this kind of soap versus that kind of soap, and they all just kind of stay.
Okay.
So.
I just want soap. Like.
Well, and really, since we've done the change, we've had no negative feedback, or I haven't received any negative feedback as it relates to the soap is terrible, I don't like this. I think we had one problem initially when we installed it. Some of the bulk soap, which comes in a concentrate, had frozen in transit. So it's supposed to come out as a foam, and it was coming out more as a goo. So that was the only negative feedback that we've received since this change out. Everything else has been very positive.
Thank you. Our resource officer and traffic officers are critical to the school district, highly value added, but we're looking at opportunities. What do other districts do? Do they expend for that cost? We currently expend about $150,000 to the village. And with our last meeting, we presented this as a question. I believe Libertyville does this currently. The school district does not pay for the resource officer. And we've presented the question to Mundelein to see if they do as well, if they do not pay as well. But it's a question to frame to the village if there's an opportunity to absorb that cost. Certainly, we're in a position to welcome that. As it relates to copying services, we have paid off all of our payments for our machines throughout the district. We're proposing to extend using these units as long as we can. Realistically, probably this year and next, the 3rd year, we may have to look at replacement units at that point. We have implemented paper cut within the district office, and it will be implemented district-wide for the start of school. You have to use your ID if you want a copy from now on. It's going to help us gather the data we need to effectively monitor and manage consumption at some point, considering limits. We also want to evaluate the opportunity to perhaps look at centralized copying services. It's a big change, but one that can dramatically cut the amount of printing and consumption, as Ms. Lynn Barkley will tell you as well. She has experience with that. Okay. With that, are there any questions as it relates to this?
I have one. And I am by no means an expert on solar energy, so I apologize if this is not what we're looking at. But if we were to install the panels on Elementary North, and if we were to generate more energy than we need, could we sell it back to the grid as a possible revenue stream?
Yes, you could. Now the downside with doing that is, so your power comes from the solar panels, they go through an inverter, and then it either goes into your building, or you can go through your meter head, and you can actually have your meter run backwards. You can feed it back to the grid. The problem with doing that is if you feed it back to the grid, then when you do need power, you're buying back at whatever the rate out there is.
Okay.
You're not getting it at that discount. So it's really kind of a double-edged sword. And for the amount that we're going to generate, we won't overexceed our building.
Okay.
Yeah, we won't generate that much where we'll just have a surplus of extra power.
Okay. Thanks.
I also had a question about the solar panels. So I know you're saying they last about 30 years. What is the warranty on those, assuming they sustain some damage by sitting on top of a
The
roof?
inverters and the panels, I believe, are a 10-year warranty on those.
Okay. And then after that, do we have any idea how much it costs to repair, replace?
Not yet. We haven't gotten that far into the equation yet.
Then would we need special insurance if there was like a hailstorm or something?
That I'm not sure of either. I know that one district did have an incident happen where they went through their own insurance on that, and I don't know if it was a specialty policy or not.
That's a good question.
So would the panels provide all the needs for that, for example, Elementary North, for that building, or we would still be connected into the grid just in case
you would
something
still
goes on?
need additional power from
Okay.
our provider. So just with that system, that equates to about $26,000 a year, which will nowhere touch what our utility bill would be in any one of our buildings.
So what is the next step for the solar panels?
We need to explore the lease options more. We need to dig into the setup of it. There's a couple different setups you can do where they'd really come out and they do a field study then of the roof, and they'd say, okay, you need east-west panels or you need south-facing panels. And then I'd want to do some field trips. I've never had a building with solar on it. So I'd want to understand it a little bit more. I'd want to see the inverters and see what the options are on the inverters. If an inverter goes down, which is really kind of the guts of this thing, if that goes down, you're not generating power. So whatever panels are feeding that inverter, they're not doing anything for you. So there's different systems. Some monitor it, some don't. What's the upside, what's the downside to either type? I need to have a little bit more information on those first.
And do we need zoning coding change from the village, permission from the village to put solar
I haven't
panels?
gotten that far yet.
So we're way early on this still.
We're very early.
Okay.
This is
Crystal
really
ball.
just a preliminary heads up. This is a path we're looking at, more information to come. I would not see this to be a zoning issue. When I met with the village in the past, we're not really changing anything. And some of the school districts locally have them. Grays Lake is putting them in right now. I think Libertyville has some. You can't see them when you're at the building. If you walk up to the building, you won't see them. And many people think when you walk up, you'll see this great big shining disc, and you really don't. They're pretty low profile anymore.
They're offset from the edge, so as far as
Correct.
the sight lines, you would not be able to see it. And we're also dealing with multiple vendors. We're going to look at multiple options. Siemens is another company we've also talked to.
Awesome.
Are there any grant programs available?
So part of the return that you saw is accounting for grants. So
Okay.
there's a solar energy credit that's
Okay.
factored into that.
Okay.
And then there's another distribution one from ComEd that's factored into that as
So
well.
do we automatically get the credits, or do we have to write a grant and apply for them?
No, you don't have to write a grant for it, but you
Okay.
do have to go through the application process.
Okay.
And that can be lengthy.
Anything else on the solar panel? All right, I've got a question on the LED one. Any plans on going inside, changing?
I would like to go inside next year.
Okay.
We have some very inefficient lighting in our gymnasiums right now. There's opportunities for us inside. Overall, they've done some change outs in the districts to T8, and they've reduced lamps, so your consumption is down, but there's still additional opportunities. And LED, that beyond just the energy savings of it, there's a maintenance component to it as well, where LEDs really reduce your maintenance time on your fixtures.
So with the energy saving, what's the typical payback time, for like the outside ones that you're switching
Well,
off? there's a cost to
I'd
do
have
it.
to, I'd have to calculate it out, Jason, on these. These, we got a grant for, if we'd have bought those fixtures just on the market, it'd have been about $65,000, and we bought them for 43. So if you remember our original budget, we were at 60,000 for the LEDs, and we'll come in, you know, by the time all expenses are figured in, we'll be under 50,000.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was going to ask, is this, that 13.7% savings is net of what we had to spend to get it.
The 13.7% is what
Energy.
we will spend on powering everything versus what we would have spent.
Okay, so
with-
it's just one
with a
type of energy
conventional
versus
fixture.
another.
Yeah,
So-
our
okay.
savings are actually 87%.
87%.
Okay,
savings.
of what we
because
were
even just
using.
the interior bulbs and stuff are expensive, like,
Correct.
yeah.
And disposal of them, and there's a whole
Yeah.
gamut of things that you can factor into that equation.
Okay.
Any other questions on these savings ideas? I think these are great. Love seeing these. Bring more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
so
Thank
much.
you.
Savings and more
Thank you.
plans.
More savings.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thanks, Abe. All right. Now we're on to the action item.
Yes.
Meeting of the meeting. All right. First action item we have is for the approving the 2018 Educational Facility Master Plan, which we had just talked about earlier tonight. I think we already summarized it. We already talked about it. So do I have a motion to approve the 2018 Educational Facility Master Plan?
Can I just say one thing?
Yeah.
At a prior meeting, there was a timeline presented of which buildings were going to get touched and when. And I got some feedback in between that, you know, there's certain concerns about certain parts of the timeline. And I just want to make clear before we go approving this and people think everything is set in stone, that timeline is flexible. It's going to depend on a lot of moving parts and when we pull bonds and stuff like that, if it passes. So
Absolutely.
don't
yes.
freak out.
That's correct.
Okay.
It'll be fluid and as needed, based on Abe and superintendent's evaluation.
Then I move that the Board of Education approve the 2018 Educational Facilities Master Plan that includes plans to build and equip a school building as an addition to the Sullivan Community Center, build and equip additions to and alter, repair, and equip existing school buildings, including but not limited to constructing life safety improvements and additional classrooms and improved sites.
All right, motion by Robin. Do I have a second?
I second.
Second by Wes. Any discussion? We already talked about it, but here's your last option to talk, discuss, anything. Jeff, anything?
No, I'm good.
All right,
Jason, can I just make a comment?
please.
I just want to, I know I've mentioned this before at two previous meetings, but I want to say it again, that I did not personally support the April 2017 referendum for many reasons, which I will not go into right now. But I do want to say that I support this plan 110%. Is it the perfect plan? No, but it's the best plan that meets our needs, and I'm really excited about moving forward, and we've got lots of good things to come at Hawthorne, and I hope that the community gets on board and supports us.
Thank you, Wes. Any other? All right, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Jeff Bard,
Aye.
Jason Chong,
Aye.
Matt Jacobs,
Aye.
Wes Pullen, aye. Robin Cleek,
Aye.
Julie Simpson.
Aye.
All right, motion passes, 6 ayes, 0 nays. Next action item is a resolution providing for and requiring the submission of a proposal of issuing $48,700,000 school building bonds to the district's voters at the general election to be held on the 6th day of November 2018. So this would be to put the question on the ballot for November, and then that's when the community gets their say, yay or nay. So this motion is just to put the question on the ballot. Do I have a motion
Do we have discussion or no?
after the motion's made?
I move that the Board of Education approve a resolution providing for and requiring the submission of the proposition of issuing $48,700,000 school building bonds to the voters of Community Consolidated School District Number 73, Lake County, Illinois, at the general election to be held on the 6th day of November 2018.
Motion by Robin. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Matt. Discussion. Any comments? Questions? Discussion. Julie.
I have a comment. We put a lot of time and energy into this and everything, and I'm gonna, I'm gonna agree with my colleagues on, what we should do, but I am gonna put out there that I definitely have some reservations and concerns about the timeline and the consequences, if it doesn't pass. I just wanna put that out there, but, I'm working with you guys just as I have, and I'll continue, but I do have some reservations, so.
When you say concerns with the timeline, are you saying we don't have enough time, we're going too fast? What is your concern?
That's the concern I have,
Which one?
that it's too quick, that we won't have time to educate before that date. So,
Any other comments? Concerns? Discussion items? Nope. All right. Can I get a roll call vote, please?
Jeff Bard,
Aye.
Matt Jacobs,
Aye.
Robin Cleek,
Aye.
West Pullen, aye. Jason Tron,
Aye.
Julie Simpson.
aye.
All right. Motion passes. 6 ayes, 0 nays. All right. Last action item is a resolution providing for and requiring the submission of the proposition of increasing the limiting rate of the Community Consolidated School District Number 73, Lake County, Illinois, at the general election to be held on the 6th day of November 2018. And so we had talked about this earlier. This is putting another question independent of the referendum question onto the November 6th ballot to increase the limiting rate. Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve a resolution providing for and requiring the submission of the proposition of increasing the limiting rate of Community Consolidated School District Number 73, Lake County, Illinois, at the general election to be held on the 6th day of November 2018.
Motion by Robin. Do I have a second?
I second.
Second by Wes. Any discussion?
Only thing I want to say about this one is I wish we had gotten a little more heads up on this, only because I feel like we worked our way through the entire process of the F&P and getting all those numbers down, and then this was kind of thrown in at the last minute. So I almost kind of feel like this one's a tough one to swallow, to be honest. I know we need the money for the operational costs, but it's like one of those things where you worked all those months to get this price down with the community, and then this got thrown in there at the last minute. So it's the only thing I'm struggling with it. That's the only. I wish we had a little more heads up than just the last meeting for this to pop up.
Do we have any options on this to go into to have more discussion? If we delay approving this now, we can still get it. When's our deadlines, so to speak, of getting it on the ballot?
August, right?
Today. Yeah. August right around the corner.
So it's really the next month.
Yeah. That's correct. I thought tonight was, we backed into tonight.
Backed into tonight was the last time.
Right.
Benchmark.
But at the time when I had presented that date as kind of like we need to move, because with Julie, if you waited another month, then you're back to the 2017 schedule where you had 2 months.
Not enough time.
This kind of got dropped in our laps at the last minute, and that kind of frustrated me, just because, like I said, we worked so hard to get that money to a point where we thought it was digestible.
Yeah, I agree. It seems like we spent a lot of time on the referendum question, did that discussion. We went through many different options, many different scenarios. This one, not as much.
Right.
I guess I understand your concern there, and I feel the same, that we did spend a lot of time on the other one, and not nearly as much on this one.
Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, the reality is, though, is that if this doesn't pass, I mean, we're just deficit spending even further, right? I mean,
we're going to have to find a way to.
Right.
Well, it's on us whether we deficit spend or not. So it's on us to.
Well, we build buildings that we can't run. I mean,
or find ways to.
That's why I commented
cooperate.
last meeting about how, I think we did a really good job of laying the groundwork for the actual plan. But as far as laying the groundwork with, being able to afford it without doing deficit spending, we didn't focus on that as much. And that's why, I think it's great tonight that Abe and Mike gave the presentation about, what we're cutting, and we're still looking for ways to cut more things.
Without it affecting the students.
Absolutely, yeah. And Abe, for the second question, this is just giving the district permission to increase it. We don't have to increase it, correct? Or no? If it automatically increases if it passes.
We have Miss Elizabeth Hennessy here tonight. I'd like to have her respond as well. Her subject matter expertise is.
Just to answer your question, you don't have to increase the rate. If for some reason you find some way to come up with that additional operational money from savings or bigger class sizes or something like that. But
So this is when we go out through the levy process. When we levy, this allows us to go over a limiting rate
right.
by that 0.1%. And so that's an opportunity where we can under levy, or there's always the option of, we've got surplus, let's abate this money and give it back to the taxpayers. And so that option is always available to us as well.
Okay. I just didn't know if
and
if
it's
it,
an
if
annual
it passed.
decision.
Okay.
It's an annual decision,
Okay.
each levy. So.
And I will say, Matt, I do agree. I think it did hit me by surprise a little bit because I thought we were going to find other means to do that. But, after meeting, I met with Abe one-on-one, then I met with the superintendents one-on-one, two on two. Yes, I was with Wes. After hearing both of their explanations, I think it's really what we have to do, and I think it makes the most sense, even though it is a tough pill to swallow, and I hate to ask the community for another thing, but I don't really see that we have another sound financial choice to make.
Maybe some of those explanations could be provided here for the public as well.
I can't do them justice the way the experts can, but.
So who did you talk to?
Well, I talked to Abe first, but I can't explain it as well as he can as to why this is the best way to go about it. And then Dr. Porto had explained why this question really has to go along with the other question. And at the time, it made perfect sense to me. And now in the last 2 weeks since I met, I can't sit here and regurgitate it verbatim, but.
It's being fully transparent.
So I know we've discussed this a few times. I don't know if the last meeting was the first time that we've presented this. We've sent in the detailed costs associated with the operational needs of the EFMP. Our district has one of the lowest revenue per student, and you've seen that chart that shows all elementary districts within Lake County, and us being one of the lowest tax rates as well. And for the last 5 years, having run a $2 million deficit operationally, the task of absorbing another $1 million would make it $1 million more difficult, 50% greater task. And so identifying that we're expanding, we're putting an addition onto our house, we need operational cost offsets to support that addition that we're adding. Because within our house, currently, we're running a deficit, and we're going to take care of that. We're not asking the taxpayers to address that. We need to take care of that within. But because of the space needs, because of the need to do these additions, to build Sullivan, we need support with those operational needs associated with that construction.
And all I would add is you've got a very educated community here. They're going to ask good, tough questions during the campaign. And some districts that I know that weren't successful and kind of got in trouble were the ones that built beautiful new buildings and then put no thought into how they were going to pay for them. And believe it or not, that question came up during the campaigns, during the information sharing. Well, there's this amount of extra square footage. What are your plans? you don't want that to happen in the middle of your educational campaign leading into November. You want to be up front from the very beginning. And it's up to you to decide whether you want to vote tonight or not on this. But I would suggest if you think the outcome's going to be the same anyway, vote tonight, because you're going to want to start information sharing as early as the residency events that are coming up. And you don't want to have, well, we're sure on this one, but we're not sure on this one. A very divided message would start your campaign off with people feeling like, gee, even the board doesn't know for sure what they want to do.
I think it's one of the smallest limiting rate increase questions that
It's
have
so
ever been.
minimal, yeah.
It's
I've
very
never
minimal.
seen
So we try to
I've
identify.
never seen one that small.
You know, the minimum mandatory costs associated with this, and we try to do that. You know, that was the mission. And we want to go into this not reacting 5 years down the line, identifying that we've deficit spent even more because we built this, and the taxpayers will pay if we go into short-term borrowing.
Right.
And that interest that we pay on tax anticipated warrants, I think that would get more negative feedback than what we're framing as far as the question right now.
Just to be clear, I'm not against this. I felt
No.
like it was kind of like a.
And I'm glad you did.
Yeah.
I agree.
Kind of.
No, I
I'm not
agree with
against it either, but I agree.
This discussion has been helpful.
Yeah.
I mean, just to
So-
clear. I think the two things that give me a little comfort with this is seeing that we are working on reducing our expenditures. We're looking for ways to cut costs. We saw what Abe and Mike was able to do today. We will continue to see that, I believe. I believe the public will see that the district is serious about not just talking about raising revenue, but also cutting costs at the same time. So we're doing everything that we can to.
It's gotta go
they said
hand in hand.
They're going to go hand in hand. The second thing that gives me comfort is when I look at the impact to the taxpayer. If you look at one of the slides that Abe did present, the combination of the referendum and the limit rate increase, the taxpayer would still pay less than they would have in 2019, 2020, 2 years from now, if we do nothing. So we're not having a huge increase in the annual payment for the taxpayer. We're just stretching them out. So it's not a $111 jump on top of what you're paying. The overall, with the restructuring and the refinancing, actually has a negative impact by lowering your taxes 2 years out from now when you add those both questions together.
Correct. Over those 7 years, the next 7 years, it's actually net savings when you look at everything versus doing nothing, including that limiting rate question included. Just want to stress again, we have the option every year to bait money back to the community. You know, if you've got surpluses, it belongs to the taxpayers. It goes back.
Agree.
And so we always have that option every year, including during the levy process, to not levy, to under levy.
That should govern this decision.
And Jason, I think what you just said is really where our job is going to come in, is providing the educational, informational piece, because that's going to need to be explained and re-explained numerous times.
It's like refinancing your 15-year mortgage to a 30-year. You're going to pay less every month, but you're going to pay longer. So the people that buy in to the community in 2025 will actually participate in paying for the use of the buildings versus if we do nothing, they pay nothing and they get to use it. And all that payment is now loaded on us now versus spreading it out.
Right.
Absolutely. Good analogy.
Okay.
All right.
So the motion's
anything
still
else?
on the table.
All right. We have a motion on the table. One more discussion. Can I get a roll call, please?
Robin Cleek,
Aye.
Jeff Bard,
Aye.
Matt Jacobs,
Aye.
Jason Shawn,
Aye.
Julie Simpson,
Aye.
Wes Pullen, aye.
All right. Motion passes. 6 ayes, 0 nays. President's report. I only have one item on the President's report. As most of us already know, tonight is Wendy's last board meeting with us. She's our silent rock on the end over here of our board table. We are sad to see Wendy leave, but are happy for her and wish her all the best as she pursues other opportunities. Wendy, the board thanks you for all you have done for us. We are so appreciative of everything you do, including deftly capturing every word we say here in minutes.
Whether we want you to or not.
Even all those late meetings into the wee hours. preparing our board packets and getting us everything that we need, making sure we are taken care of for all our conferences, outside meetings, training. Most of the stuff that the board does could not happen without you, so thank you. You do this with grace, kindness, professionalism, and always with a smile. For this, the board would like to present you with a small token of appreciation. You definitely deserve it. Thank you very much, Wendy.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then with that, we need to introduce our interim secretary.
I guess that's a good title for it.
Coming up will be
Wendy's been working with Leslie.
with Leslie.
Yeah,
Leslie,
for the
those of you I know Leslie, and works in the, she does a great job on that newsletter. I mean, you do a great
Yes, she
job, by
does.
the way. I enjoy reading that. And someone who, in a pinch, has jumped in and said, I'll help. And she has great skill set. And we're not going to hopefully make you permanently in that role and have to do two jobs at the same time. That saved the district a lot of money. But we're not going to go on that list of Abe's and try and do some more cost cutting. But we truly appreciate your willingness to help us out. We're here 2 weeks. We don't have much history, and so we know you do have that. And I know you and Wendy have been working together now for the last couple of days, and very nicely too, by the way. You play well together. So thank you, Leslie,
welcome,
for
Leslie.
jumping in there.
Thank you.
All right. Superintendent's report.
Yeah. We're
Gentlemen.
just basically we don't have a report. We want to establish a pattern of getting you home early at these board meetings. You don't want to hear us go on and on and on. But it's been a very active couple of weeks for Joe and I. And again, with the limitations that we have and not being able to be in the office every single day, lots of things have happened that we've jumped on board with, especially the hiring. And I'll echo Joe's compliments that were thrown at Lynn earlier. And Lynn has just been invaluable to us. And we've had to sort through lots of resumes, interview a lot of people, and hopefully building and rebuilding our team to support the board and the students and staff, in District 73. School is not that far away. It's a month away. Yeah, I know I probably shouldn't say that, but it's right around the corner. We still have a lot more work to do. So we don't have a formal report, just a welcome. Joe?
Okay. I do have, and Lynn's going to give you a real quick update. Why don't you do that, and then I have a question for the board that'll wrap up our report.
So at this point in time, obviously, you've seen the resignations and the hires come through. So it's a pretty fluid thing. Our principals have been interviewing almost every day. I hear of a different interview. They're working as teams to get the best quality teachers that we can get for our students, as well as our support staff to support the teachers. So everything is kind of in a fluid motion. I'm trying to keep up with the board to be informed on that. At this time of year, we usually ask for one thing. Currently, I redid all the staffing today, used current enrollment numbers as of today. As you know, residency is next week. That will probably fluctuate a few numbers. As it stands right now, I feel very confident that we can staff without coming to the board for additional positions as of today. We have a couple in contingency. We have a couple that we might have to go from one building to the next. We're still evaluating that. That's always an uncomfortable thing because everybody gets very attached to their buildings, but we're watching those numbers and they're changing in ways that we didn't expect. So what I would ask, usually at this point in time in the year, we always come to the board and ask because there's not another board meeting prior to the new teacher day, which is the 14th, you meet on the 13th. If we were to all of a sudden after residency pop somewhere where we weren't expecting, we've done our contingencies, we can't move anybody else, we need to be able to host a possible anticipated opening, which would come to you that meeting of the 13th for approval. So it doesn't mean that we're going to definitely hire somebody, but we usually ask for a consensus that if we feel that need, we would communicate with you and Sonali to let you know. But we're watching those numbers very, very closely. Our middle schools are packed. They're very, very full. However, both principals have worked with me over the past week. Every class that's over 30, they have provisional plans for. Every single one either has an assistant, a co-teacher, or something to alleviate those high class sizes. Plus, we don't have space. So it's not like we can just add teachers. We don't have a room for them to go to. So they've been very creative with their scheduling, and I know the elementaries are as well. So right now, it stands, if we stay kind of status quo, we should be fine within our contingencies, but we never know until we go through that residency event. We've had a lot of movement, but you just never know. So.
Are you comfortable with your past practice then to continue to give Lynn that flexibility?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay,
Okay.
we just
It's a
didn't want to
common
take it
practice. Yeah.
didn't want to take it for granted. Thanks, Lynn.
Thank you.
And then I'll wrap things up really quick, but now that you formally passed the resolutions tonight, we can talk openly about the R word, the referendum. And because it is a referendum now. Here's my question for the board. I'm sure, well, first of all, on the meeting on August 13th, I would like to present to the entire board a PowerPoint where we talk about some successful strategies that districts have engaged in to get the word out successfully. I know that's come up in many of your discussions, to get the word out. How do you do it? What strategies have worked? What ones are time efficient? So I'd like to do that. But I also know that a pretty big community event, your residency event, is coming up before then. And that might be an opportunity to actually begin some of the information sharing. Well, one of the things I'm going to talk about in that presentation is the importance of having brief but powerful message. 4 or 5, I hate using the word talking points because it's kind of gotten a negative connotation with politics. But the 4 or 5 main points that you want this community to know. We need to kind of start working on that already. Mm-hmm. So again, there isn't a board meeting before then, and also it's probably not efficient, again, to try to create those in a group of 7. So Abe and I were wondering if there might be maybe 2 board volunteers who would work with us next week. Well, I was going to let Jason and Sonali figure out how to deal with multiple volunteers. But what we'd like to do is use Google Docs so that it can be open to all 7 board members. Mm-hmm. But start crafting those 4 or 5 points. And then maybe having the residency day the first time those are launched and presented. I didn't want to let a good day like that one that's already on the calendar go by, but we also don't want to rush the process and use something old from last year or something. So
right.
That would not be good. No. So could I leave it at this, Jason? If they're interested, could they contact you? And then you and Sonali can figure out how you want to assign it.
So I already saw West and Matt's hand go up. If anybody else is interested, let me know. And
Wes is our PR expert.
Okay. And then, as I said, we'll do it all on Google Docs. So be looking for it, even though you might not be in the committee. We'll get that out. And then my goal would be to have that the main core of the message to launch that on that residency day. Sound okay?
Yeah.
No.
And I
Great.
on my schedule, I blocked Wednesday and Thursday. I can work 12 to 3:30.
Oh, okay.
12 to 15.
Yeah, I was
So
just
can
going to
do
ask.
With
I'm home.
I figure.
Well, no, I was going to ask, so I'm not volunteering to craft the message, but are we splitting up times? Are we going to have members at the residency event at all times? We did that last.
So we did that last year because we had a survey.
Okay,
so last year we had a
educate me.
survey out in the community to gather why the referendum failed. So that was a large reason we attended the residency event.
Oh.
I will tell you, when I was there at least, yes, we were able to get a lot of surveys answered there, but people largely treated me like an information booth. Where am I going for my gym uniform? Where do I pick up my bus schedule? I'm not saying I won't attend, although I won't because I'm having oral surgery the day before. But I'm just saying, if we are there for a purpose, for a referendum or to educate or to answer questions about the EFMP, happy to do it. But if we're just there to put on a badge and smile and, you know, that's nice. We can be the face of the community, but I think we need to have a purpose there, not just a stopping point to see where they go in the gymnasium next.
So maybe between you and Renee, figure out how to best use a board member if we can use one at the
Good. We'll do
residency
that.
event.
Perfect.
First
And then I
determine
guess
who's available.
we'll contact you about some possible times to meet next week. Maybe we'll give you a couple of options and you can pick the one that works best.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Thanks, everyone.
Didn't think so. Okay. I can tell you. All right.
That's it.
Thank you, Joe. No, any committee reports?
No.
Cito,
We're
anything?
good
No?
to go.
Okay.
Just a closed session.
Public announcements? Anybody have any public announcements? Nope.
No.
All right, last thing, general information, read your Hawthorne in the news. The treasurer's report for April and May are in your packet. Many topics for future discussion. And our jam-packed schedule.
I was going to say, I don't
We know
feel like
what's
we can
gonna-
take on anything
We
else.
know what's going
Yeah.
to trump just about all the other, I shouldn't use.
You can't use that verb anymore. I got nailed doing that in a
Yeah.
public setting the
Sorry,
other day. It's a
that
perfectly
will
good verb. too. You
overwhelm
just can't
all
even
the
use
other
it
topics, yeah.
All right, we will go into closed session after this for a quick
Collective bargaining.
collective bargaining. So can I get a motion to go to closed session?
I move that we go into closed session to discuss the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the district or legal counsel for the district, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee or against legal counsel for the district to determine its validity. 5 ILCS 120/2C1 is amended by PA 93-0057, and to discuss collective negotiating matters between the district and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes or employees. 5 ILCS 120/2C2.
Motion by Robin, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Matt. Can I get a roll call, please?
Julie Simpson? Aye. Robin Cleek?
Aye.
Wes Mullen, aye. Matt Jacobs?
Aye.
Jeff Bard?
Aye.
Jason Tron?
Aye. Motion passes, 6 ayes, 0 nays. We are in closed session.
And we are inviting Lynn and Abe to join us in closed
All right,
session.
Yeah, for the collective bargaining.
Conversation. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Closed session.
Yes. Thank you.
Shut off the recording.
I'm just,
You have a wheelchair?
no, not yet.
Yeah, I can. I'll be fine.